welcome to the very first JR Takes podcast. I'm Ryan Rodgers.
And I'm Jonah Hoffman.
And today we are going to be talking about a little transaction that happened just about a month ago. March 8th, 2022.
Oh, boy.
The day the Seahawks died.
Yeah, well, I mean, on the initial, when I heard the breaking news from Colin Cowherd, well, actually, I heard it from you.
Is that? Oh, yeah, that's right. I texted you.
And then I pulled up my phone, pulled up Instagram, and I follow the Herd on there. One of my favorite sports journalists. And yeah, he broke the news. And when I saw that we traded and got Drew Lock in the deal, I was devastated because, I mean, I have a history with not liking the guy based on his sideline antics of, looking like an idiot rapping. Well, he did like one good thing in a game and then just was terrible after that. But that being said, I have, I've been following the Seahawks social media page, and he seems like a straight arrow. I mean, he seems like he wants to win. I
will say, I was slinging some Drew Lock shit right after I heard the trade because it just seemed so unacceptable to me in the moment to go from Russell Wilson, first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the most iconic figures in Seattle sports history, arguably, the pinnacle of Seattle sports.
Totally.
To a guy, rapping on the sideline and leading the NFL in interceptions in 2020. But actually, the more I've looked into it, he seems just like a nice kid. And
totally,
it does seem like he wasn't given good opportunities to succeed in the league in Denver from all the transition and with COVID and all of that nonsense. So, I'm more on board with it now, but let's turn back the clock a month and just go through what was your initial reaction to hearing that news?
Well, I still kind of am in this boat, but I was mainly just shocked that our ownership went with management over the best player in our franchise's history.
You mean you thought it was weird to choose a 71-year-old coach over a 33-year-old Hall of Fame quarterback?
Yeah, and I still want Pete gone. I mean, I love the guy. I think he's done a lot of great things for us, but I think he's 71 years old. I think it's time to move on. What, is he going to be our coach for the next 10 years when he's in his 80s? I don't want that. I mean, not that, like, you can't do great things at that age, but the league is getting younger. I mean, you saw the two head coaches that were in the Super Bowl, Zach Taylor and Sean McVay, and they're both in their 30s. I mean, yeah, granted, that was the first Super Bowl, or those are the two youngest head coaches to ever play against each other in the Super Bowl. So, granted, that was a rare circumstance, but I don't think we're going to be seeing less of that.
There's certainly been a pattern of youth in the NFL, and they say it's a young man's game at the playing level, and obviously it is. But I think just because there's so much analytics and the game is transitioned so much more to be like college football and just have like high octane offense. I think the old school mentality in a lot of these guys, they still have a place in the league, sure, but it certainly does seem to be going more towards a youthful coaching situation.
Yeah, well, sorry, if you see me looking on my phone, it's me looking stuff up. I'm not like texting or anything like that.
I didn't think so.
But one guy that I think of that comes to mind when you bring up like analytics and all that stuff, I think we talked about this the other day, was the LA Chargers head coach, Brandon Staley. I noticed he was kind of like a little bit overboard with the trusting the analytics this past season. Like he went for it a lot on fourth down. I think against the Chiefs early on in the season, he went for it on fourth down and won the game because of it. But fast forward to the end of the year when they lost against the Raiders in the final week of the season, I believe that had to do with an analytical mistake. Well, and him calling a timeout at the end of the game made absolutely no sense. And
that was one of the weirder situations we've ever seen where a tie would have actually got both teams into the playoffs. And I wish they had, because then we wouldn't have had to watch the corpse of Ben Roethlisberger get fucked by the Kansas City Chiefs. So thanks, Staley.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that. Because at least if you're the Chargers, you have some hope with the youth at quarterback. You got Justin Herbert, who's a freak athlete.
Yeah.
And I mean, the guy, he's just he gives you a lot more hope as opposed to the Pittsburgh Steelers, who we knew what we were going to get with them going into the game against Kansas City. Yeah. And they got, of course, I don't even remember the score of the game, but
it was not pretty. It was it was over before halftime, I want to say. I can't even remember the score because I think I watched the first quarter and I was like, this is gross. I don't need to watch this.
Yeah.
But shift gears back to the Seahawks. There was discussion throughout all of the offseason last year and through the season this year as it became more and more clear that potentially the big three of Pete Carroll, John Schneider, and Russell Wilson were not going to all be together again after this season. And, midway through the season when we were 3-8, and especially after we lost to the Bears and Nick Foles, I was full bore, just blow it up, get rid of everyone,
Yeah,
and
totally.
I was of the mindset that, okay, let's get rid of our ancient coach, John Schneider, like the guy, but I mean, our drafts since 2012, honestly, have not been very good.
No.
So I was comfortable with the idea of moving on from both of those guys, but building around Russell Wilson, because you don't find a quarterback like that too often, at least historically. And, as Seahawks fans, we've never had anything like Russell Wilson before. And, it remains to be seen what the post-Russell Wilson era is going to be like. However, when we were kids watching the Seahawks growing up, we had Matt Hasselbeck, who was a good quality, serviceable quarterback, had a couple Pro Bowls, but was not just a take over the game generational talent that is.
He was almost like a Kirk Cousins type of quarterback. Not gonna put up any crazy big numbers, but he's gonna be efficient when he needs to be.
What's funny about Kirk Cousins is he actually has really, really good career stats, but it's like nobody cares. Like, nobody gives a shit about Kirk Cousins' phenomenal completion percentage, touchdown interception ratio, because it's just like something about him.
Maybe it's the win-loss record.
That's probably what it is. They say he doesn't show up in big games or whatever it is, but I don't think Kirk Cousins is bad by any stretch. But
did he finally win a Monday night game?
He might have. He finally beat us last year in that one of the worst defensive performances I've ever seen out of the Seahawks.
Oh yeah. That game was gross.
Yeah, that was disgusting. That was really, and just to kind of walk through the 2021 season, it started off so great in that Indianapolis game, and it was like the season ended in the second half of the Tennessee game, week 2.
Oh yeah, I was at that game.
Yeah, it's like Derrick Henry literally broke the 2021 Seahawks.
Well, and I remember specifically Derrick Henry scored it was a long run. I don't remember how long the touchdown was for.
It was right after that broken coverage where Swain got like a 80-yard touchdown catch or something.
Yeah, and I think we were up by like 2 score. We might have been up by like 13 or something, and Derrick Henry scored in like 40 seconds. And I was like, well, this is the perfect recipe for us to blow the game. Yeah. Let them score immediately with like a whole quarter left.
Yeah, that was the most un-Seahawk, un-Pete Carroll way to lose a game I think I had ever seen. And it really, at that point in the season, only the second week, you just got the feeling that something about this formula we've been trotting out since 2012, let's say, with Wilson, it just wasn't clicking anymore. But I will say, to shift back towards the end of the season, once we really got Rashad Penny going and got the run game going, defense started to playing slightly better, and Wilson looked more like himself, given more time to heal from his finger getting snapped in half.
Yeah.
I was actually on board to run it back, keep Wilson, keep Carroll, keep John Schneider, and just give this thing one more year. And if they don't make the playoffs, then blow it up.
Yeah, I agree, because we had We had that, what was it, 2017 when we didn't make the playoffs?
Yeah.
And
Blair
then,
Walsh year.
yeah, and then this season I kind of felt like was a little bit, I don't know, not an anomaly, but like it was definitely out of character for us to perform the way we did. I didn't expect going into the year us to get 4th in the division. I'll put it that way.
And it seemed like a lot of the games we lost, you know, whether you talk about the Titans game or the game against the football team or the Steelers or the Saints, these were all very close games that came down to the last possession. And, you know, for the better part of the last decade, we always found a way to win those games, like at least like, you know, 50, 60% of the time. But it was like this year, nothing would go our way. That Seahawks magic, so to speak, was just gone.
Yeah. No, in fact, funny you bring up the football team. I think that was maybe our worst loss of the season, because that when we lost that game, that was kind of like the dagger. Yeah. That was kind of like, oh, we have to have a lot of things fall our way if we want to even think about making the playoffs as the 7th seed. And
at that point too, it was like, even if by some miracle all those pieces fell in the right spot, do you want to watch this team any more than you have to? that was the point I got to. It was like, even if we make the 7th seed, like, do we really want to watch them get the shit kicked out of them by the Buccaneers? Like, because that's what it was going to be, more than likely. Yeah. Although part of me did want to see Russell Wilson, Tom Brady round, like 4, I guess it would have been. Yeah. Which I don't know if we're going to get that ever unless the Super Bowl plays out a certain way next year. But I would not enjoy that Super Bowl. I don't want that to happen at all. That would be no thank you. Nightmarish. Hard pass. Yeah. But yeah, so March 8th, I think at that point, since it had been a month since the Super Bowl, most Seahawks fans started to think, well, you know, we're hearing all these trade rumors, but we hear them all the time. It seems like the national media wants to have every one of our good players go to a different team for some reason. Yeah. So I really didn't expect it to happen, especially when you look at this year's crop of quarterbacks in the draft, which many think is a weak class. I just didn't see it happening. And, you know, well, what are they going to play for, Deshaun Watson or something like that? Which I'm glad they didn't do. For the record. Very glad we did not grab Deshaun. But for a minute there, it looked like maybe that was their plan, and it didn't happen. I don't know if they tried to make it happen. I mean, it's hard to trust what you hear out of the rumor mill. But and speaking of the rumor mill, I would love to have been a fly on the wall and kind of get the truth out of management and Russell Wilson, because honestly, ever since Russell Wilson has left, he kind of, to me, has seemed like a big phony. And I don't know, maybe it's because he's like we were talking about the other day. It seems to me like Wilson cares more about like being friends with a bunch of celebrities than he does about playing quarterback and being a winner. And I don't know. That's just my personal opinion. I think he's fully invested in winning, and because he's obsessed with his legacy, and that's kind of what my take on it was. Is this is a guy that, you know, I'm sure he appreciates the fans, and I know he's went every Tuesday to the Seattle Children's Hospital. Yeah. And Russell Wilson was a big role model for me, honestly. We drafted him when I was 17 years old. So just seeing his story of a guy that was said to be too short, 3rd round pick, actually get the starting job and then be historically great. It was really inspirational. Yeah. But I do think, and I was in denial about this over the years, but I do think, I hate to say it, but once he met Sierra, I think his focus started to change a little bit. And I don't blame him. I mean, he's married to Sierra. Yeah. She's beautiful and, you know, has a status in the world. With her accomplishments. None of us could, you know, say that we wouldn't change if we were in a situation like that. So I don't blame him, but I do think he really has moved a lot more towards just building his brand. Like, you know, how he signs off everything is 3 now, which is just like, I don't know about you. It's a little nauseating to me. Well, and we could maybe in
post-production, we could maybe even add the soundbite of Mr. Unlimited.
Mr. Unlimited. Yeah, you gotta be unlimited. You gotta have a thought process of being unlimited.
Because of how, just to demonstrate how cringeworthy.
You know what we could do throughout this season to be just, super salty about it? Every week he throws an interception. We play that sound bite for the amount of picks he threw.
Yeah, it might be kind of fun during the season. We literally play the soundbite of Wilson drops back, and it's intercept, and then we play Mr. Unlimited.
But I still have a lot of love for the guy. He's will forever be an icon in Seattle.
Yeah.
And I mean, hey, he won us the Super Bowl. Really should have won us too. Did things for this franchise and brought us to places that we had never been. So I'm grateful, but once I was over the shock of the trade and worked my way through the logic of it, and also frankly looked at what we got back for him and how objectively he has performed in the last year and a half, I think we might have fleeced the Broncos.
I love listening to the Mike Salk podcast. I told you that the other day.
Yeah,
the 710 ESPN, and he made a really good point on there. I think it was when him and Brock Heward were discussing the trade, and he mentioned that Russell Wilson is better at being efficient than he is being productive, which basically what he means by that is if he has the tools around him to be successful, he is going to be. Yeah. But if you try to make him in charge of the offense and let Russ cook, so to speak, that's just not he's not an Aaron Rodgers. He's not a Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
He's not.
And you could also make an argument that strategy, period, hasn't always been the most successful strategy for winning. I mean, it's been successful for putting up insane numbers, but I can't remember the last time this has happened, but when is the last time the MVP won the Super Bowl?
It had to. That's a good question. You should probably pull, because I know it's been before the 2005 Super Bowl, because that was the year Sean Alexander won it, and we did not win the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Let's see here.
Steve McNair on the Titans won it, and they didn't win in 2003. LT. Yeah, wow. Rich Gannon on the Oakland Raiders. Yep, they lost. Kurt Warner. It was Kurt Warner.
Was it though? Oh, it was 99. Yes, Kurt Warner in 1999. Unless I'm missing something here, it has been 23 years since the MVP of the NFL was on the Super Bowl winning team.
Wow, and look at that too. You got Terrell Davis winning it the year before, and I believe the Broncos won the Super Bowl that year, correct?
Let's take a look real quick. This is why I love Pro Football Reference, the best site for statistic nerds.
Oh, yep. One Super Bowl, 34-19 against Atlanta.
There you go. So it happened 2 years in a row, and now it's been 22 years without happening. But there's also I think there's a lot of evidence of, yes, you need a great quarterback. You need great players at every position spot to win the Super Bowl. But this idea that, if you put Peyton Manning in 2013 on any team with control of the offense, they're going to win a Super Bowl. Well, they didn't even win it in 2013 when he had the best statistical season ever for a quarterback.
They didn't just not win, they got embarrassed.
Yes.
So
by us, for the record.
Cheers to that. If I still had my water, it's over there.
But all this to say, I think Russell Wilson is going to get what he wants in Denver. I think they're going to build the offense around him. And I think they're going to throw the ball a whole lot more than we ever were besides the first half of the 2020 season. But you even just take a look at that season, and we were throwing all over the yard, putting up crazy numbers, putting up crazy point totals, and we were winning. But every one of those games was, if you remember, a absolute heart-stopping stress fest down to the end. Because when you play with that style of offense, it just creates more drives. because it's just, we got to score on this drive. We got to score on this drive. And people are throwing the ball over the place. And Ken Norton's defense could not stop a nosebleed that season as well.
Are you which season are you? I missed
2020.
2020, right.
Because I think after the Arizona game, or let's say the Buffalo Bills game, because I feel like that was really when the Seahawks shifted offensive philosophies from the let Russ cook experiment back to the more clock control, ground and pound, be efficient in the passing game. And so your point earlier, Russell Wilson is, in terms of passer rating, the 4th highest rated passer ever, behind only Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson. That's it.
Wow, Deshaun Watson's the number 1?
He's number 3.
Rodgers is 1, isn't he?
Mahomes is right now.
Oh, okay.
Mahomes is just like, if you look at all-time leaders for passer rating in most like per game metrics, Mahomes is already number 1, which is why you see some people say they already think Mahomes is a Hall of Famer. And it's kind of absurd because he's been playing for, this will be what, his 6th season? But it's, when you actually look at the numbers, it's not that bold of a take. Assuming if he falls off a cliff and is like Chad Henne the rest of his career or something, then yeah, I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. But like, he's literally number 1 in passer rating. He's number 1 in pass yards per game. And plus just the eye test, like, dude has just made some of the craziest throws I've ever ever seen.
Yeah.
But anyways, Russell Wilson has been one of the most efficient and accurate passers the game has ever seen. But I don't think his strength is going up to the line of scrimmage, audibling 20 times and just, dissecting a defense with a bunch of quick intermediate passes like Peyton Manning and Tom Brady do. Russell Wilson has a better deep ball than those two have ever had. But they are absolute field generals and just completely find the weak spot in the defense and continue to exploit it in a way that we just haven't really seen Russell Wilson do that. He's been, for the first half of his career, he was a phenomenal athlete, still is, but he had elite speed at the position and escapability. As that's waned, it's kind of been more like play action, hit a crazy deep ball to Tyler Lockett that makes no sense that it was even completed, and not a whole lot else, to be honest. So I do think he's going to put up crazy numbers in Denver, but I am, just to say, skeptical of their odds of actually being an elite team in the NFL this season, because the media keeps talking up their weapons. I mean, what they got: Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, that KJ Hamler guy, I think, and who's the running back?
Javonte Williams.
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, certainly not a bad supporting cast, but this isn't the same kind of situation as Tom Brady going to Tampa, where you have Mike Evans, Antonio Brown, and what's the guy? The younger guy. They just gave him a big contract. Godwin. Yeah. Those are 3 of the best receivers in the league.
Yeah.
Plus Leonard Fournette.
Yeah. I was just trying to find the stat. I heard when I was listening to the Salk podcast a couple weeks ago, some guy called in and said Russell Wilson was something to do with him being one of the lowest rated successful quarterbacks to throw over the middle.
Yeah.
And that makes a lot of sense to me because, I mean, I did not play football like for years growing up, but I did play quarterback in Pee Wee's one season. And I remember it was hard to see over the line, and everyone was like around I was like 15. So obviously this is a different situation, but, all the linemen who were like my height, basically, it was still tough to see over them. So, and I'm Wilson's height. And so imagine trying to throw quick passes over the middle when you have guys that are 6'3", 6'4", 6'5" blocking for you. It's just like, that is why he's a play action rollout, get out of the pocket type of passer. And I don't know, how tall is Drew Lock? Like 6'3"?
I think he's 6'4". He's a big guy.
Yeah, so I am kind of looking forward to the height factor no longer really being an issue, because I mean,
Unless they
even
draft Malik Willis or something, but
how tall is he? 6 foot?
he's 6'1.5" or 6'1" or something. So
Yeah.
still taller, but I mean, to piggyback off what you were just saying, I'm a bit over 6'2", and when I played quarterback in high school, I couldn't see shit over the middle. You know,
Yeah.
you have to throw through passing lanes, even if you're like 6'6".
Yeah.
But I do think, every inch of height you lose, it's got to be exponentially harder to see what the hell's going on.
Yeah,
out
you've
there.
got to make up for it in other parts of your game.
Yeah.
And Wilson, he did.
Yeah.
But he doesn't scramble anymore. He wants to be the pocket passer, and I don't think that's a strong point in his game.
It's going to be very interesting to see the Denver Broncos era Russell Wilson and how he plays out the rest of his career, because he's going to be 34 this season. He claims to want to play into his 40s like a Tom Brady.
Yeah.
And if he wants to do that, he's going to have to figure something out else about his game, because I pulled up the passing chart that you were just describing. And if you look over the middle area, Russell Wilson is worse than average or within league average on every one of these passing charts going back to 2016.
Wow.
This is the 2016 season where he just really wasn't playing well. But if you look at all of these, down the sideline, 20 yards down the field, he is elite.
Yeah.
Like the best, which perfectly correlates with, everyone knows Russell Wilson has a good deep ball.
Yeah.
And it's got the most catchable deep ball I think I've ever seen. But to go back to the Tom Brady comparison, that's not his strength right now, and it really never has been. That's not what has made him successful, and he is the shining example of how to have longevity at the quarterback position in the NFL, because he takes what the defense gives him and he's accurate over the middle. Those are things that Russell Wilson is going to have to figure out how to do at 34 plus years old, because it has not been a consistent part of his game at any point in his career up to this point.
Yeah, and I mean, look at Tom Brady too. He has the recipe for being the most winningest quarterback ever. He has a great defense. He takes a pay cut, and the pay cut is, I think, one of the main things of why his longevity has been so impressive, is because he wants to win more than he wants to get paid. And granted, he got paid early on in his career, but...
And his wife is super rich as well. So.
Yeah, his wife is borderline more famous. I'm pretty sure I've heard that his wife is more famous to people of Brazil than he is to the United States, which is bizarre.
I've heard that
think
as well.
About that.
I don't really ever look into that stratosphere of models.
That is a very subjective statement anyway.
Yeah.
So,
and it's how do you even measure it?
Yeah, you can't. But
anyways, so what would you say overall Russell Wilson's legacy is in Seattle?
Honestly, even though I'm a little salty about him leaving, he's the best player to ever put a Seahawks uniform on.
I agree. I agree.
He's not I think the most meaningful Seahawk to me personally is Marshawn Lynch.
Beast mode.
I think he's the biggest what could have been if we had just given him the ball in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
As much as everyone knows that story, and it is, I remember when that game ended, I watched a video the next couple days after, and it was a Pete Carroll press release on what had happened. And he was saying, "Oh, we will not let this define us and our legacy," and yada, yada, yada. And I was just man, I really hope he's right. I really hope we can make it back to the big dance, and we have not.
Turns out it's pretty damn hard to get to a Super Bowl.
Yeah, and it is, I don't know, it just really bums me out, because hearing that initially back in 2014 or 2015, I guess, was when the Super Bowl happened, and I guess I just thought, we'll make it back. I trust Russell. I trust the defense. And then the 2015 season was awful. The 2015 season, if you remember, that was the year Cam Newton and the Panthers went 15-1, and that was the year where we kept blowing fourth quarter leads.
Yeah, for all the talk of the Legion of Boom's greatness, and it was great. I'm not saying it wasn't. They were not very clutch. There was so many times from 2012 to let's call it 2017 where we had a lead in the fourth quarter with 5 minutes left, and we ended up losing the game.
Well, and I think a lot of that has to do with, Bobby, he obviously part of the Legion of Boom, but our secondary, Cam, Sherman, Earl, like they were kind of all we had back there. I didn't really think much of the other corner. Byron Maxwell was all right, but
he had a great second half of the 2013 season. It was actually, so the 2013 Seahawks, bold statement, I think are the best team I've ever seen, period. And I obviously biased, but Richard Sherman was the number 1 rated cornerback in terms of opponent passer rating that season. You know who number 2 was? Byron Maxwell.
Wow.
So quarterbacks had the shittiest time throwing to our 2 top corners, and Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor were Pro Bowlers that season.
Not to mention, we also had guys like Walter Thurman and Jeremy Lane.
Yeah.
And they were no scrubs. They
Our fifth
were
string
legit.
corners would be starters on other teams that season.
And I will never forget when Jeremy Lane broke his arm in the Super Bowl. I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah. And then just as impactful as that, in my opinion, was after Cliff Averill got concussed, all of a sudden Tom Brady
had like an hour to throw every drop back.
That's the story with Tom Brady is like, if you can rattle him, you have a chance at beating him. And honestly, if you can't, you're probably going to lose.
One of and that's why my second all-time favorite Super Bowl behind our 43-8 against Denver is bar none the year that Eli Manning beat Tom Brady in
the first time?
Yeah, the first, when they were undefeated. And if you remember, the Giants' defensive line was insane that year.
Ozzie Umenyiora and Michael Strahan, right?
Yeah, those guys were. I want to say they had one other guy.
They did. It's been a while.
Can't remember, but
like 15 years.
But one thing I remember about that game was the pass rush on Brady. Like they were consistent with that, and that is kind of one of the keys is he's not a mobile guy. And if you can bring the heat and put pressure on him, he's not, that's kind of a, no shit thing to say, but we struggled for a few seasons now with our pass rush. Pretty much ever since we didn't re-sign Jadeveon Clowney, and Jadeveon Clowney was great. I'm glad we didn't re-sign him, but like our defense was, they played more of a ball hawk-esque. Remember that Niners game when we beat San Francisco in San Francisco it was a Monday night game? Or it might have been a Thursday night game.
Which one are we talking about?
The game where Jadeveon Clowney had a touchdown. I think he had an interception.
So that was the 2019 season.
Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, the Seahawks defense has not been great since 2016. It was good in 2017, solid in 2018. Pretty mediocre to bad in 2019, but at least they generated turnovers.
Yeah, I guess that's what I meant more so is like it was nice seeing guys like Clowney because he did that a couple times, didn't he?
He had 2 touchdowns that season.
Yeah,
which was crazy. But the last 2 years, and this is why I really think we just need to go, and maybe now is the time to start to transition to what the Seahawks should do at number 9 this year. Following the Russell Wilson trade that has totally changed the landscape of this franchise. I think personally, if Thibodeau falls to them, or Thibodeau, however you say it, the guy from Oregon. Yeah. If he falls to them, I think that is a must draft player there because our defense has been absolutely toothless the last 2 seasons. It's like they don't give up 80-yard touchdown passes, but they give up 7-yard completions over and over and over again. To go back to the Buffalo Bills game in 2020, I don't know if you remember this, the Bills ran the ball like 3 times that game. They were just like, the Seahawks are good at stopping the run. Let's just fucking throw it then. And it worked spectacularly. To the tune of one of the most abysmal defensive performances I've ever seen. And I feel like I've had to say that twice on this podcast. All of which to say, thanks for the memories, Ken Norton. You were a great linebackers coach. But
Yeah.
I'm glad we're going in a different direction as at the defensive coordinator spot.
Totally. Yeah, and kind of, I totally agree with you. I think at the number 9 spot, I'm going to be pretty upset if we take a quarterback at number 9, because there's just, we have so many other positions to fill. And not having, like I said, once we lost Clowney, we kind of really didn't have any playmate. I mean, I love Poona Ford. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. And Dunlap, for a few games here and there, was amazing as
but he would disappear.
Yeah.
And it's like that. It opened my eyes at how important the D line is, because we haven't had good D line since our Super Bowl season.
Yeah,
really.
I mean Frank Clark was
good,
for a couple years,
but like he wasn't worth the money that the Chiefs are paying.
No,
him.
and he's been pretty mediocre since he got that bag too.
Yeah. So I would really like it mostly if we drafted a D lineman at number 9 or an offensive lineman
because we have 2 offensive tackles on the roster period right now, a 6th round pick and an undrafted free agent.
Are you talking about Stone Forsythe
and Jake Curran? Yeah. Which I think they're both promising prospects. Jake Curran is a hell of a run blocker. His sliding into the starting role at the end of the last season directly coincided with Rashad Penny's breakout performances. But he's a terrible pass blocker. Hopefully he can develop that. I mean, he's an undrafted rookie free agent last season, so he will get better.
Yeah.
In theory. But regardless, we at least need depth, even if we are planning on using 22 as an opportunity to see what they have in those guys as starters. You can't go into September with 2 offensive tackles on your roster. You just can't.
Yeah.
So they have to. They may re-sign Dwayne Brown. They may re-sign. What was the other guy on the right side? I can't remember his name. It was.
Dude, you would know better than me. Our line has kind of been just players coming and going that aren't Dwayne Brown.
At least we don't have any more defensive tackles that we switched playing on the offensive line anymore.
That was so annoying. We were like obsessed with doing that for like 4 straight seasons.
Well, do you remember a couple years ago they drafted that tight end, Stephen Sullivan, and the only playing time he ever got was on the defensive line?
Well, that also reminds me, remember George Fant?
Yeah.
I saw a couple mock drafts, which maybe this can transition us to the DK Metcalf extravaganza or fiasco that he's been put through lately. There was a mock draft where we trade DK and a pick or something, like a 3rd round pick or something, and we receive the 10th pick, which was our pick.
Yeah.
And George Fant, who was also ours.
Who made this?
Some idiot on Instagram. I don't know. I saw that and was like, if we ever do that, like,
if that
put a fork in
happened,
us because we are idiots.
Honestly, I would have to just not watch Seattle Seahawks football until everyone involved with that decision is gone, because that would be horrendous. But yeah, let's talk about DK Metcalf, because I honestly think right now he's the only one on our team you can look at and say, that guy is the face of the franchise. DK Metcalf is the reason why you turn on the TV on Sundays if you're a Seattle sports fan.
We've always,
that,
in the Pete Carroll era, we have always had at least one dude on our roster that's been scary.
Yeah.
And who else besides him is Drew Lock? No one's afraid of him. I'm sorry.
Maybe they're not afraid yet. Let's see what they got.
That's true.
In Mr. Lock there. And actually, to talk about Drew Lock again for a second, because I meant to bring this up earlier, is I think the Drew Lock acquisition starts to feel a lot better if you start to think of it as he's our rookie quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Because he is only 24, 25 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And if he was in this quarterback class in the draft, he might be the number 1 prospect, because he put up a lot better numbers than some of these guys.
He had 40-something touchdowns at Missouri?
Yeah, something crazy like
Yeah.
that. And he ran a 4.69 40. That's
Wow.
pretty quick.
Especially
That's
for
fast.
a big guy like that.
Yeah. That's faster than most of the prospects got this year. And he does have a hell of an arm. He's got a good arm.
Yeah.
It's just the brain, I think, that needs to be worked on. But to Pete Carroll and John Schneider's credit, we have always had pretty good quarterback development at the Seahawks. Even Tavares Jackson, he put up okay numbers, but he did a lot better with us than he did in Minnesota. Geno Smith last year, I mean, there's a lot you could say about the way he played, and a lot of it was not great, but he played efficiently and he didn't really commit turnovers. So that is one thing. I don't know how they do it, but they have proven, and I guess with this, it's more of a Pete Carroll thing. He has proven he can do two things. He can take turnovers out of a quarterback's game, and the guy can coach up. It seems like a guy working at FedEx to play cornerback, and he'll get a pass deflect or something.
Yeah.
Unless they're named Trey Flowers.
Poor Trey Flowers. Wasn't
Yeah.
Trey Flowers on a playoff team that...
He was on the Bengals.
Yeah, that's what
he
I thought.
almost won
That's what I
Super Bowl.
thought.
And I feel really sorry for Trey Flowers. I feel like Seattle fans were a little too nasty to the guy on the internet. So,
Yeah.
Trey, if you're listening, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're sorry. We're not Eagles fans, Trey. Come on. We should have done you better than that.
Yeah,
And,
I agree. And I to talk about Rashad Penny again, I think in one of his Rashad Penny is the reason why Jonah didn't win his fantasy.
Yeah, thanks, pal. You could have been good your first 4 years in the league, but you decided my championship game to turn into fucking Hall of Fame-esque running back.
Well, I really hope that he can continue that performance that he had last season, because the one reason for optimism, I think, for the 2022 Seahawks is they have a ton of draft capital. So if they can hit on 4 of the 8 picks that they have and get a better pass rush on defense and could just continue the run game that they had last year. If Drew Lock is just asked to throw 20 passes a game and half of them are play action, I think he could be a successful game manager. He's got the physical makeup to be something greater than that, but I have watched way more Drew Lock highlights than I ever would have thought I would this time 2 months ago.
Yeah.
He does have really good physical abilities, but he just makes some plays sometimes where it's like, what the hell was that? Like what are you doing, man? So, I mean, optimistically, I feel like that's a coachable thing. But with number 9 and with to circle back with the DK Metcalf thing, I totally agree with you. I don't think we should take a quarterback this year. Although if they did take Malik Willis, I don't think it'd be smart, but I'd be excited.
Yeah.
The guy's he's electric.
Well, I think it's kind of ironic for me personally as a Seahawks fan how all the quarterbacks that we've been in discussion of potentially getting, aside from drafting a rookie, we have Drew Lock, and I did not like the guy before he was a Seahawk, and he's growing on me. But the other 2 rumors, one being Baker Mayfield that might come to Seattle, can't stand the guy, and then the other rumor that I heard was Daniel Jones, and he might be the worst option.
Yeah.
And
I mean, we already have a 2019 draft pick that struggled in Drew Lock. Why take the one that's been worse than Drew Lock?
Exactly. And I think these are all hearsay rumor.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Sports writers are bored, and we're one of them now.
I do think it's like, what do you think about the potential of bringing Baker on? Do you like the idea? Do you not like the idea?
The one thing that would make me like it, because the Browns are complete dumbasses and gave a guy that might not legally be able to play next season $230 million guaranteed, they got to offload Baker's contract. They have to do it. And so there's a possibility that Baker Mayfield could turn into a Brock Osweiler situation where the Browns trade him and a draft pick to a team just to take on Baker's contract. It remains to be seen whether they'd even be willing to do that. But honestly, I don't want to give up any of our capital, especially a draft pick, 4th or higher for Baker Mayfield, because we have so many other positions that we need to fill. And this is a deep draft class. There's a lot of corners. There's a guy, I can't remember his name, but he's a 6'4" cornerback, 205 pounds. I'll look him up later. He ran a 4.26 40-yard dash.
It's not Sauce Gardner, is it?
No, it's not Sauce Gardner. I can't remember his name. But anyways, he might be available in like the 3rd round. And there's a ton of interesting prospects because a lot of these kids sat out one of their college seasons because of COVID.
Yeah.
So they would have been in last year's draft, but now they're in this year's draft. You know, there was a record-breaking amount of wide receivers in this draft that ran a 4.3. So there's a ton of talent in this draft, and I don't want to waste any of that potential to grab a guy who has been at times good, but never great.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I do think, though, I do feel a little bit for Baker because I do think the Browns did him dirty.
Oh, I agree 100%.
He won them a playoff game against a team in the Pittsburgh Steelers that have dominated them for 2 decades now.
Yeah.
Maybe even longer. Just since I've been watching football in 2003, 2004, whatever year it was that I first started. But, I mean, yeah, the Steelers have always had their number, and they kicked the shit out of them in the playoffs and almost beat the Chiefs the next week.
Yeah.
And so...
And, Baker, whether you like him or don't, he brought some personality and some relevance to that franchise that was not there. I mean...
Totally.
How many quarterbacks have they started since, 2005? 600?
Baker did have a cockiness to him, but he also had that swagger to him that they needed.
And he broke the rookie passing touchdown record his rookie year.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He broke Russell Wilson and Peyton's.
He threw for 28.
Damn.
Justin Herbert shattered it in 2020. He threw 33 or something. He threw 30-something touchdowns as a rookie. Never even come close to happening before. But I think Baker, obviously he was the number 1 pick. He's got a lot of talent. But I honestly don't think he would be a massive upgrade over Drew Lock. I don't
think so either. And
I think with Drew Lock, you actually have more to, no pun intended, unlock out of the guy's potential because he's gone through 3 offensive coordinators in 3 years as a early 20s guy. And not only that, but the Broncos have just been kind of a mess on the offensive side with their
pretty
play
much
calling.
ever since Peyton retired.
Yeah. I mean, that's another franchise that's been a revolving door quarterback. And funny enough about the Broncos is they've never drafted a quarterback that's won a playoff game besides Tim Tebow.
Funny.
Every good quarterback they've had, they've traded for.
Yeah.
John Elway was not picked by them.
Who drafted him?
What was it? Baltimore? Hold on a second.
Because I know John Elway was towards the end of his career when he won them the 2 Super Bowls.
Right. So, yeah, he was drafted by the Baltimore Colts, and a lot of people didn't like John Elway because they thought he was kind of a snot-nosed little, spoiled, I don't want to play for the Colts.
Yeah.
And just look at that face. He's got a very hateable face. No hate to John Elway, but
no, I agree. He's got a hateable face.
But yeah, Elway actually, I mean, I think the Broncos went to 2 or 3 Super Bowls with him and just got the shit kicked out of them. The Broncos have lost 7 Super Bowls, I want to say.
They've gotten blown out in every one.
But I mean, they've been to 10 Super Bowls, 9 Super Bowls. So they've been a very successful franchise. Just they've had a lot of blowout losses. Yeah. Including the Seahawks' only win. All this to say, Baker, I'm not about it.
Yeah, I
wouldn't be the only thing that would actually make me angry if we got him is if we gave up a 2nd-round pick or something. If that happened,
even a 3rd, I would be upset.
Yeah, because there's so many potential studs in this draft that at positions of need. We need a linebacker. You know what? I'll go out and say I think we need every position on this team besides safety. I think you could make a case. Safety and tight end.
Mm-hmm.
Besides those two positions, because, you know, I like our receivers. Tyler Lockett is a stud. I'm curious to see if he continues to do as exceptionally great as he's been without Russell Wilson. Because Wilson,
I think he will. He's a good route runner. You know?
Yes. But there's so many times where it's like Wilson just throws such a perfect arc right over the defender into Tyler Lockett's 7-inch hands.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, I don't know if that's going to be able to be continued, but I don't think they should trade DK Metcalf even for the number 1 overall pick. Like,
wow,
not worth it. Because what you're trading a cornerstone player for what should be a cornerstone player at the number 1 pick, right? But then this is just my opinion of it. Even that decision, that move, it's player for player. You're trading what you know you have in DK Metcalf, who, by the way, I think hasn't even come close to reaching his potential yet, for a mystery box. That's what the draft is. Yeah. You know?
Well, sorry, continue.
And on top of that, he's someone that wants to be here. You know, and one thing that honestly, like 2019, if there might have been a rumbling of a Wilson trade rumor, I was like, oh, there's no way he wants to leave the Seahawks. It became very clear, especially after he was traded, that he didn't really want to be here.
I mean, yeah, don't you remember last offseason when his agent gave a list of teams Wilson would go to? It's like...
And he never... One thing that really bothered me about it is, like, he wouldn't say, oh, I don't want to be traded. I want to be in Seattle. He would say, well, I'm with Seattle right now. You know, my goal is to continue to play in Seattle. A very political... I think Wilson may be a great politician someday, because his press conferences are like watching the White House press briefing sometimes.
He chooses his words carefully, like Aaron Rodgers, you know? Like, Aaron Rodgers is maybe not as likable. Well, not likable, but it's easier to be tricked by Russell Wilson, I think, with the way he speaks.
Yes, and DK Metcalf, I don't know if you saw this last week, but there was like NFL rumors or said something that like teams have been inquiring into trading for DK Metcalf, and then DK Metcalf retweeted it and said, haven't heard anything per at DK Metcalf, which like, that was just like, fuck yeah. Like, he actually wants to be here.
Yeah, I saw that post too.
Yeah, and like, why would you? I mean, the guy is 24 years old. Like, you don't trade. That's like, you know, trading like Randy Moss with the Minnesota Vikings when he's like 24. Like, why would you do that? No, I'm not saying DK Metcalf is as good as Randy Moss, but I'm saying he's, you know, a franchise type player. And you just don't do that. I don't care if you have to pay him $25 million. You don't have a quarterback you have to pay. So don't tell me you don't have the money for it.
Yeah, well, it doesn't worry you at all how the market value for wide receivers is just, I mean, look at all the receivers that are getting paid around the league.
Right, but what, are we just not going to have good wide receivers because of that?
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, you have to pay quarterbacks way too much. You have to pay pass rushers way too much. Mm-hmm. It looks like receivers are now like, of those 3 positions, where like, you know, a couple of years ago, $20 million a year, that was just quarterback money. Mm-hmm. Now we have a safety that we're paying that much. And there's a lot to be said about that. But it's just the nature of the game. You know, if you want franchise players, you got to open up the pocketbook. And I think the NFL salary cap is going to increase greatly next season, just based on some rumblings I've been hearing about maybe them having some sort of merger with Amazon. For like streaming of games.
Yeah, that fucker really wants a football team, doesn't he?
Well, honestly,
because he tried to buy the Seahawks, didn't he?
I think he might be the next owner of the Seahawks, Jeff Bezos. Which I hate Jeff Bezos, but as long as he doesn't move the team, I'd honestly be all for it, just because he's got a ton of money and would be invested. But Jody Allen, I'm pretty sure, is going to sell the team in a couple years. So that's something down the road the Seahawks have to think about
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think DK Metcalf is a once in a lifetime kind of talent to just get at the bottom of the second round.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's a once in a lifetime talent, genetics. I mean, the guy eats 4 bags of candy every day and has one meal and has a coffee, and then he looks the way he does, according to him.
I'm a candy type person.
What?
I eat 1 meal a day, drink 1 coffee, and eat like 3-4 bags of candy.
Okay, let's hear this.
All right, I'm just taking you through yesterday. So yesterday I woke up, worked out again, came home, showered. I'm hungry. Run to Starbucks, get a quick coffee. That's gonna hold me till like 4, 5 o'clock. This 12,
okay.
So it's gonna hold me for like 4 hours.
Dang.
Around 4:30, I ordered some candy and a water. So I got, what did I get yesterday? Got the Skittles gummies. Then I got the Lifesaver Creations. They the same size bag, so I just mix them.
So it's safe to say we're going to see a DK gummy at some point, right?
Yeah,
okay,
for sure.
Okay, y'all heard it. Another certified
moment.
Right?
Yeah. Get the gummy, get the candy, get the water, eat that. That's gonna hold me to like 8 o'clock where I'm having dinner, 8, 9. And then I eat dinner, go to sleep.
Now,
So on a scale of 9 to 10, how did that hit your bullshit meter? Because I gotta say, there's no fucking way DK. There's no. I mean, he looks like a Greek god that did steroids. Like it. There's
not. I don't even think he looks like he did steroids because he's so thin. He's such a thin, but like, I mean, he's not thin. He's 200 something pounds.
Well, he's like what, like 230?
Yeah, but he's like. He's
cut.
Yeah, he's so cut that I'm like, dude, how do you live off of Lifesaver gummies? Like, how is that getting you your half-cut shirt, 6-pack abs showing stomach that we see when you're practicing on the sideline?
I eat a donut at work and I'm like, oh fuck.
I have like 2
loser.
beers and I look so bloated and feel terrible, and I'm just like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I will say, if it is true, that's just further proof that NFL players are not normal people.
No, they're lucky as hell with their genetics.
Yeah.
And his dad was a NFL player too, wasn't he? A lineman?
Yeah, he was an offensive tackle on the Bears. And fun fact, when the Seahawks played the Bears in 2006 in the divisional round, he was starting for them.
Wow, I did not know that.
So you watched DK Metcalf's dad play football and you just didn't know it.
Yeah, and he beat us. So.
Yeah.
We didn't deserve to go do anything that year anyway.
Yeah, the 06 Seahawks. I mean, for a team that was a overtime loss away from hosting the NFC Championship, they were bad.
Dude, yeah, all those years we went 9-7. I was just like, ugh. They made the playoffs, but could we just lose so I can move on with my life?
Yeah, that was back in the day where the NFC West was kind of just like a
joke.
A just complete joke. And it's funny, like ever since the 2010 year where we were the least sucky team that made it in at 7 and 9, the division's just been an absolute like horror show to try to win with these defenses. And I will say, like, the biggest turning point for the NFC West, I think, was when the Rams drafted Aaron Donald. Because, oh my God, I think if Aaron Donald went to a team in the AFC, the Seahawks might have another Super Bowl. I know that's maybe hyperbole, but no one player has made the Seahawks lose more than Aaron Donald.
Yeah.
And he broke Wilson's finger last year.
Well, and it really seems like we have no answer for, I mean, all these years of losing to the Rams and just pretty much getting smacked in the mouth by them every time we play them. Like, going back to our discussion of Wilson or Pete and who should we have gone with, I wanted Pete gone after we lost to the Rams in the playoffs. We lost to, who was that guy that came in for?
Wolford?
Yeah.
And
John Wolford or whatever his name was.
Yeah, then Jamal Adams hit the shit out of him, gave him a concussion, and we had no thumb Jared Goff come in and throw ducks for like 300 yards somehow against us. It was that was the day, you know, like this. It was almost like this whole last season was just like a referendum on that playoff game.
Yeah, because I remember after that game, I was like, Pete Carroll did not have our guys ready. He didn't. It almost seemed like he didn't even game plan.
What was crazy is the Seahawks beat the Rams solidly like 2 weeks before that. It was just like the Rams came in and wanted it way more. And also, to go back to Wilson, he kind of just started looking lost out there, like second half of 2020. It was weird. Like when the camera would pan to his face, he just had a different look on his face. I know that's like super, subjective and like anecdotal, but as someone that has watched every Seahawks game for 15 years and every game Wilson ever played, there was always a look in his eye when it was almost like Jordan-esque, like against the Bears his rookie year, like where he just refused to lose, essentially.
Remember that picture I have of Wilson when he's standing, like we used to have
the
it
Panthers.
Yeah, his eyes look so calm and collected and focused. Like when he was a rookie, second year, third year player, he was so dialed in.
Yeah.
Like week in, week out. And yeah, kind of how you were saying, how he looked a little bit like unsure of himself at times. It was a little concerning. I mean, maybe that wasn't going on. Maybe he just looked that way, but there was games when he didn't play well. He didn't really play good in that Rams game.
No, he played terrible.
And everyone, like, going back to DK, when he got pissed off on the sideline and was like, having a little bit of a temper tantrum, I liked that. It kind of fired me up because I was like, yeah, what are we doing? We seem like we don't even want to win this game. And DK was the one getting pissed off, being like, what are we doing? Get me the ball. I want to win us this game. And granted, the very next play, Wilson throws a pick six on the screenplay to DK.
Yeah.
But I really like DK. I hope we do hold on to him, even though it does make sense to trade him. I don't want to trade him for the 10th pick that we gave the Jets. We're getting rid of DK to get our own pick back. I'm sorry.
That's just insulting.
Yeah.
Plus, I don't want the New York Jets to have anything more from us. They already have been talking shit about the Jamal Adams trade for 2 years.
Yeah.
I don't want to help that franchise out anymore.
Yeah, and it's funny. We've had a lot of trades with them in the past. Like, remember we traded Percy Harvin to the Jets?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few teams, like, have you noticed the Jaguars are like a Seahawks, like, C team? Like, so many of our coaches and players just end up in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
And then do bad.
Yeah. I remember Gus Bradley. He was a really good coordinator for us, and then he went down there.
Schottenheimer and Bevel were on their coaching staff last year, I'm pretty sure. And honestly, I think Schottenheimer and Bevel, both of those guys have bared the brunt of some of Russell Wilson's deficiencies. Now that I've had time to look at it from a bird's eye view, I think over the years they've probably been trying to draw up plays to be more efficient on third down, and it's like Russell Wilson's very boom or bust.
Yeah, so I agree with that.
I'm looking forward to obviously not having the specialized elite talents anymore, but just having maybe some more consistency on third down and the ability to utilize the short middle area of the field a lot more, just to get some efficiency instead of boom or bust.
And honestly, for me personally, I would rather watch a football team in the Seahawks that is defensive focused and makes stops rather than, it's fun watching a team score touchdowns but it's not fun seeing I shouldn't say that. It's fun watching shootouts, but yeah, I would rather remember all those games against the Niners in the early 2010 era when it was two powerhouse defenses, it was a slugfest. I like watching football games like that. And I don't know, it's just so frustrating when the third downs we give up game in and game out, nothing was changing. They weren't making corrections. Yeah. And
which is why, just taken all together, I am ready to see something different than what we've been trotting out for the past 5 years or so.
And going back, I just don't know if Pete and John are the two that should be leading that wagon.
Yeah, and I almost wonder if they even face the potential of having any accountability, because Jody Allen seems like a pretty laissez-faire owner. and she's the only one that would be able to fire them. So not that I even necessarily want them to be fired, but like if the 2022 Seahawks suck ass, which they likely will, to be honest.
Yeah.
Is there any possibility that those guys are moved on from at the end of the season, or do they already have like, okay, so we traded Russell Wilson, we need a few years to rebuild? Do they have that kind of agreement?
I hope not. I really hope not, because they've been here for 10 years. We don't need to 10 plus years. We don't need to. I feel like what we see is what we get with that. Like, we know them, and like what Pete and John have done. And John has just straight whiffed on draft picks pretty much ever since Lockett. Lockett was our last good, solid pick. I mean, Jordan Brooks is good.
Yeah, and
but
don't forget about Metcalf, and Darrell Taylor is very promising as well.
I don't really. I mean, I personally think I'm not gonna credit Pete and John for drafting Metcalf. The dude was. Don't you remember all those memes?
Yeah, I couldn't believe.
He was even
I thought he was going to get drafted in the first round, like top 10.
So, like, the fact that they took him in the second round, yeah, he had knee injuries coming out of college, and yeah, he had that injury in the preseason, which scared me a little bit. But, like, I don't know. I'm not going to credit them for being masterminds for drafting a guy that had his shirtless picture on the internet that looked like a freak of nature.
Yeah, it didn't even look real.
Yeah. We're of course referring to the AJ Brown, DK Metcalf weight room pictures.
It was either a pre-draft visit or it was after they drafted him when Pete Carroll came in the room and took his shirt off. I mean, Pete Carroll got his fourth down decisions, and his conservatism in play calling just frustrates the hell out of me. But I still love the guy.
Yeah.
I think he's hilarious. He's another icon of Seattle sports. And, as a human being, I think he's phenomenal. But I do think, regardless of how these next few years play out, he's, 2-3 more years at the most. He's going to be in his mid-70s. I kind of see Sean Desai, the defensive assistant we hired, as potentially being the heir apparent to Pete Carroll.
You've said that before, yeah.
We'll see what happens with that. But anyway, we're over an hour here, so might be time to wrap this up.
Yeah, that was really fun. That went by really quick.
Yeah. A lot to say and a lot more to say. So check in a few weeks for the next JR Sportscast.
JR Hot Takes, JR Sportscast, the JR, of course, is for Jonah and Ryan. It's not like Junior or anything like that. If we didn't clarify that already. But this was fun. We have a lot of good topics to discuss in the next upcoming weeks. Are we doing it bi-weekly? Are we doing it weekly? We could do this every Sunday, honestly.
Well, we'll see what happens. Yeah. I'm looking at doing maybe some mock drafts next week because we're getting pretty close to draft season. Yeah.
Do we want to do an NFL mock draft, or do we want to do a Seahawks mock draft? What do you think?
I think it could be fun just to do an NFL mock draft.
Yeah,
maybe just first round.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah,
I'd like that.
Well, anyways, thank you so much for listening. If you're still on this, and we have been JR Takes Sportscast. I'm Ryan Rodgers,
and I'm Jonah Hoffman. Thanks for listening.